In this lesson, we will work on controlling the neck and head in IK mode. What we'll do is create a control to drive the head, and that's going to also drive helpers C and D. Then we'll create a control for it that will drive the rest of the neck. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. We'll import in an arrow shape. Alright, let's say we go ahead and start to move this closer to Rexy. We'll press the Z key to zoom in. Let's go ahead and scale down its size. We'll go ahead and just grab all of our points, grab our scale tool, just start to bring this down. I'll go ahead and zoom in. Alright, from here, let's go ahead and reset its X-form. We'll also make sure to collapse it. And then we'll have it snapped over to neck C. So that's where it will pivot from. Alright, so with it selected, we'll go ahead and Shift A align to neck C. Beautiful. Now we can go to our hierarchy panel and choose Effect Object Only. And then we can start to just translate this up and over in the Z and Y axes. I'd like to now go to our vertex of object level and start to resize this a bit more, maybe scaling it down. When we use Move Object Only, it's kind of like just moving the shape as we would in our subobject level. So those are just a few ways we can approach moving our shape while leaving our pivot alone. Alright, great, so this looks good. Let's say we go ahead and rename this object. That's going to be enum head IK01. And we can create a layer for it now. Let's say we go ahead and call the layer controls underscore neck underscore IK. And we'll make sure the default layer is still active. Alright, great. So once we have this control, we can go ahead and create its parent control. That will be a part of the base of the neck. Let's go in and import a box shape. Alright, so just taking a look here, we'll want to most certainly translate it down, and then zoom on in. I'll go to our vertex of object level. We'll go ahead and start to scale this down a bit more. We're going to make this much smaller. Let's go ahead and reset the X-form on this. Great. We'll go ahead and collapse it down, and I'd like to scale this down even further. So we'll grab our points again and just bring this down a bit more. Alright, let's go ahead and grab our move tool. We're going to go ahead and move this to the back of the neck. Great. Right along this vertebrae, we'll just go ahead and place it right here at the top of what would be a spine. Okay, excellent. Let's have this renamed. That's going to be enum neck IK01. Alright, so from here, where do we want it to pivot from? Well, of course, that's going to be the root of the neck. So what we'll do is head over to our hierarchy panel and choose Effect Pivot Only. And we'll use Shift A to quick align to the root of the neck. Alright, great. So once we've managed to do that, we could also have it stored in its layer. So that's neck IK. Great. Let's go ahead and take our head control and link to our neck control. Now grabbing both objects, let's have them recolored. Alright. Now, this object here, our new neck control, this should be controlled by our root. So let's go ahead and just simply link it over to our root object. And now we can freeze transforms on both objects. Alright, so once we've managed to do that, it's then time to start controlling our IK system. So here's how we'll do this. We'll start with our helpers. Let's go ahead and grab the helper for neck C, and we want that to be controlled by our head control. So if it helps, you could always go ahead and hide your model and then grab your link tool. Remember, there's always the schematic view as well. We'll just go ahead and take that object, make sure it's linked to our IK head control. Alright, great. So when we grab this object, if we were to go ahead and just bring back our mesh and start to move this around, now we're driving that part of the neck, and we're also driving helper D. So to control the head, we simply need to go ahead and work on another helper setup, where that one will now control the head in IK mode. So we already have a helper in place that we can work with. Let's go ahead and take this helper for the FK head, and we'll just go ahead and clone it, Control V. Let's have this renamed. It's going to be head IK01. We'll also change its display so the two displays don't overlap. So we'll change this to a box, and we'll uncheck cross. Alright, great. Now from here, we're basically going to want to take this object and make sure that it's linked to helper D. So let's grab our link tool, and we'll link it to that object. Alright, great. So once we've managed to do that, we can now set up constraints. We can go ahead and grab our head bone, grab our position constraint, and we'll tie that to our new helper. We'll also grab our orientation constraint, and again, constrain to that same helper. Alright, so when we start to set up our switch, we need to switch between these weights. Alright, so for now, if we were to go ahead and grab the head control and we start to move that around, now we're getting more control. So we still have this averaging effect, of course, because we haven't swapped our weights yet. But we'll go ahead and take care of that in the next lesson when we create an IKFK switch. What I'd like to do next is go ahead and take care of the base of the neck. So we'll simply go ahead and take our helper here that we have linked to our root. We could always just have it linked back to this control object. So since it has a control now, we'll just go ahead and work with that control. So now when we grab the control object and we start to, let's say, rotate, you can see how we're driving the entire IK neck rig. Another thing we have to think about is twisting. Now, here's the beautiful thing about an IK system. We know that it has twisting control. So in this case, what we could do is get this nice twist average down our IK system. We can go ahead and create like this type of twist distribution when we use our twist end angle. We just need to figure out what axis should control it. So this is really simple to figure out. If we grab our head control, grab our rotate tool, you'll see that it's the Z-axis that needs to control that swivel channel. Since the Z-axis, of course, is the twist axis of our control object. Alright, so knowing that, with the control selected, we can go ahead and wire our Z-axis into that end twist. Let's go ahead and do that. With the control selected, we'll right-click and we'll choose Wire Parameters. It's going to be Transform, Rotation, Zero Euler, Z, and we'll tie that to our IK goals, Transform, and Twist Angle. Now if we do a direct connect and start to move our control, let's go ahead and press F3 also to take a look at this in textured mode. Let's go ahead and start to twist the neck around. You'll see that we're getting this really nice twist distribution. How cool is that? Alright, so no need for any expressions. We could just do a direct connect. It would be just fine. Alright, so things are coming along very well. What I'd like to also do is go ahead and take the Spline IK goal and just make sure that it's linked to our global control. That way everything scales together. If we go ahead and start to resize our rig, you can see everything is resizable. And that's super cool. Okay, we could also go ahead and just check out what happens when we start to reorient this. You can see it's a very solid setup here. We can go ahead and start to kind of move this around. Everything works just fine. We always want to test our systems out from time to time just to make sure they're working correctly. Okay, so let's say we go ahead and move to the next lesson. We're going to finish up our IKFK system by creating a switch. And I'll also show you how to make sure that the head does not separate from the next chain, because that starts to look pretty nasty. If we were to grab our head control and we start to kind of pull it away, you can see how it doesn't look like a nice squash and stretch. Instead, it just looks like skewing. So ideally what you'd want is a stretchable neck rig, and you can learn systems like that in our advanced character rigging tutorial. But I'd highly recommend that you go through the quick starts first before you consider going through that tutorial, just to make sure that you understand these tools that we're using and these techniques so that you can be more comfortable with the techniques taught in that course. But that's going to finish up this lesson. Let's say we go ahead and finish up our IKFK neck rig in the following lesson.